tell us about the art of the practical with advanced TV. So we've been thinking a lot about the last 10 years. A lot of stuff has changed. Give us your view of where we are today. What can you do now that you couldn't do 10 years ago?
Well, I think the previous two panels did a great job of explaining a lot of the opportunities that have been unlocked based on kind of the technology that's been brought to bear within the television space. I know that it seems like there's huge gaps that exist, and we all, I think, are well aware of what those are. But I think we all have to be really mindful of the improvements that exist today and the opportunities that are there and ripe for the taking. For the advertisers that are willing to jump in and take risk and to explore those things, and the agencies that are willing to partner with them. It's not perfect, and it's messy, and there might be a cost of entering, right? Like a cost of opportunity. But it's kind of like the Wild Wild West of 8 or 9 years ago when it came to digital. And those advertisers and those agencies that had a willingness to kind of take that risk and knew that, I'm willing to give up TRPs my weekly flight to test something. There is a risk to it and understanding what it can bring back, but those opportunities and that ability to test can give you learnings that move you much further, much faster in a really nascent space like this. And I think that's kind of the exciting part of it versus 10 years ago.
And you test and learn all the time, so you must have a pretty good view of what is really working well for you and your clients. What is working well today? When a client comes to you and says, advanced TV, give me the lowdown, Nicole. I'm guessing no one does say that, but
Actually, lately it's been the topic.
There's a lot.
So
Okay.
I think there's a misunderstanding about what the space is. Everyone goes to the ultimate, which is like OTT, CTV, one-to-one, addressable, and I think there's a gap in between that might be misunderstood, and that's where the opportunity can exist. And that gap really kind of comes down to a couple different things. The balance, the reason that TV is still powerful, and the reason that you still see advertisers, or new advertisers, D2C brands, enter the TV space that never did before. Why? Because they can't find the scale. Right? So there's an opportunity and things that exist between linear TV and the hyper-targeted OTT. And we have to understand not all of them are equal across there, and that all of them contribute in different ways to business outcomes of our brands and our clients and what we're trying to do. And I think that's the gap right now, is everyone's focusing right here instead of understanding all the different ways that we can do that in between. Some of it you might refer to as like data-driven linear, right? I think there's still power and there's still importance in linear TV. This one-to-many moment that you have that's around like a Super Bowl or awards or things that bring people together that goes beyond a TRP or an exposure, and that doesn't exist in the digital world. So we have to be really careful, I think, based on what we just heard in the previous panels about what we're doing to the power of that linear TV and not trying to make it digital at the end point.
We hear a lot of baby and bathwater type discussions. Let's hang on to the two. But just briefly, you look after outdoor and radio as well. Am I right?
For omni-channel, so those things that we're trying to bring more data to bear in more traditional channels.
So we've got a room full of TV people. Make them feel good for just 1 minute. Where is TV ahead? Where is TV really stretching the boundaries versus the other two?
Yeah, I think if you would have probably talked about 2 or 3 years ago, we would have said, oh, the radio's making moves around, with Jelly platform, and there was kind of like streaming audio players where you can kind of capture an ability to go programmatically, in day one. I think you've seen more of like a little shifts from TV. However, I think TV in the last probably 18 to 24 months with the aggregation of content, their willingness to look at different transaction types, and the opportunity to kind of look at all of those things has made, I think, more ability to scale when it comes to data-driven opportunities than when you look at some of the other channels.
One of the themes of this event is convergence.
Right.
We're going to hear a lot about that. And I think what people mean is the application of online technologies, solutions, methods, approaches to the TV world. Is that a useful way of thinking about it?
Yeah, I definitely think that anything we can do to automate things and anything that we can do to simplify process, speed to market, ability to take advantage of, creative challenges alone in TV could be a whole day-long conversation. So anything that we can do to change creative more quickly within cable, like for example, that's an area of opportunity, right? And having things that are technology would help solve that. That doesn't necessarily just mean planning and buying. That's just standard insertion and willingness and ability to shift with business needs, which might be, I need a new offer in market at scale tomorrow. And right now, we can only do that with certain advertisers in certain mediums in certain places.
And it's been a pretty interesting decade for both the TV industry, but certainly for digital. And you could probably say a lot of the last 5 years has been probably reining back in a few of the excesses of the previous 5 years. Where does TV still lag behind digital, though? Digital today? What can you do with an internet media business or brand that you can't really do on television today?
Well, I think, personalization, right? Like, I mean, I think the last 3 or 4 years has been personalization at scale. Everybody wants to talk to everybody at a one-to-one level. I think you're now seeing there's a cost associated, and that cost doesn't necessarily return on ROI, and there's considerations to play. And that's why you have other brands kind of coming into TV and out of home and radio that maybe traditionally weren't there as a result of the issues that exist within digital. I think this convergence point that we're at is a very interesting, considered opportunity for TV, because I think they have the power to still harness and capture what exists, but make it easier to change creative or make it easier to do some of these things with technology. The other side of it is, how can you make all of these things more meaningful to the brands that you're representing? And I think that's the big gap. How much do I need of linear? How much do I need of data-driven linear? How much do I need of addressable? How much do I need of CTV and OTT? How does it shift depending on the audience I'm targeting, right? Like a younger, 12 to 24 female audience is going to be significantly different than a FinServ high household income. And I think us recognizing that and understanding how each of those things contribute to businesses is critical to making the platforms and the technology useful in what we're trying to deliver.
And looking at the advanced TV market today, from your point of view, what do you see as the biggest difficulty with the advanced TV market? I mean, I guess the theme I hear endlessly is fragmentation, fragmentation, fragmentation. There's too much friction in the ecosystem. Is that,
yeah.
you echo that?
I think that, well,
Tell us about your pain.
I have a couple different viewpoints. I think the hottest buttons that you'll hear about right now is frequency. I don't know what I'm buying and where it's going. So transparency of the marketplace is a huge issue. I think understanding how much I'm willing to pay for something is critical, because I don't know, is that linear impression the same value as a data-driven linear impression or the OTT? And what am I paying for each of those that's different? And am I getting the return on it? So there's a couple of different things. One, I think TV measurement is probably the great democratization that we need of understanding how each of those are tied to a business outcome at a client or brand level, whether it's retail store traffic, website metrics, sales data in aggregate. Like, we need to get better about tying those things together so we can deliver the right amount by channel for clients to deliver the best outcomes. Because it's not going to be shifting 100% to CTV and OTT. And I can tell you those clients that have already tried to do it are going, what in the world am I paying for? The amount in DSP fees, ad tech, audience fees are making it so expensive that they're going, why are you pushing me there when I could have just have wasted audience for less money anyways? And that's what we need to resolve, because they're not going to accept it. And we need to get smarter about how all of those things get to move the needle to deliver those outcomes, because it's not one over the other. It's all of them. And we have to harness that and realize that before we make the shift so far at the end of the spectrum that we've got to a place where we're having the same issues that digital does.
And you've singled out measurement there. From what you see today, is measurement moving in the right direction? I mean, there's a lot of people here playing in the measurement space.
I'm like, who's here? No, I'm kidding. I think from my perspective, we have a lot of clients who are using different measurement tools. I think what is the big opportunity is understanding what each one can do for you. Because I can tell you we have clients that are trying to understand brand metrics and consideration. That's a very different partner that I would recommend and level of data that they need than someone who wants retail store traffic and the partner that I might recommend for them. And some clients are trying to do both. And we have clients where there's 2 or 3 different measurement partners we're using to try to get a better idea of what a weighted scoring could be to make better decisions on linear TV, CTV, addressable TV, and the amounts we're doing.
I mean, do you see any, you're sort of describing measurement as a kind of Game of Thrones scenario in a sense.
Right now, 100%.
I don't want to stretch that metaphor too far.
A lot of people are terrified when I talk about there's some clients where we have 2 or 3 partners. we are in the wild, wild west.
And there's different partners for each client?
Yeah,
depending
on what the retail, what the metrics are that deliver the business goals, it could be a very different partner that I would recommend. And then, I think we could spend a whole day on TV measurement. Like, I think there's a huge...
We have. days and days and days.
I think there's a huge issue when it comes to TV measurement with a digital mindset where people are like, just give me exposure data and I'll make decisions based on that. That's a huge issue. If you do that, you can run yourself right out of TV because you might be only taking MVPD data and it won't even tell you what smart TV viewing is happening, and it'll tell you to buy more linear. You need to make sure the bias is removed. You need hygiene with the data set. There's a lot of things that go into it. You cannot minimize the importance of choosing the right partners to make sure you're getting the right data back to make the right decisions.
And presumably one solution would be just to set up some big TV walled gardens, and that would presumably solve within those environments. Would you welcome that?
I mean, we sort of have a few that are going on already that are moving in that space.
Name names.
No.
Okay.
No. But I think you...
but there are benefits to walled gardens, aren't there, in some respects?
There's always benefits in walled gardens because there's going to be more data that you get, more transparency because they own the data. But it's just like, I think a lot of the work that we've done with Facebook and Google historically can be taken into account, right? There's learnings that you will take and you know that the cost is there of not seeing the rest of the universe, and there's learnings that you're like, no, I'm not going to listen to what it's saying because I don't have enough trust in the evaluation of the rest of the landscape. And I think that's the challenge and opportunity that exists is what learnings can you get by the walled gardens without the cost of everything else or making the wrong swings.
So one of the themes we're going to talk a bit about is what's really new with good old-fashioned traditional linear broadcast. Still a huge part of the market. From your point of view, what can you do today with linear that you couldn't do 5 years ago or even 10?
I think there's power in data-driven linear because I think it's kind of a sweet spot between like an OTT, CTV, addressable type solution and the power of linear. You can be smarter about what you're buying and find your audience more efficiently. I think we've got some really interesting learnings. I'm working on a couple of clients right now where we're actually pairing data-driven linear with TV attribution.
And just be very sorry. Yeah. Just be. When you say data-driven linear, what do you really mean? Be very. What are you really talking about?
So we're taking a target audience. We're looking at where that audience lives across the TV network landscape. We're usually kind of putting parameters around what supply partners we want to reach within, so it matches up with maybe upfront bets we've made. We look at where those opportunities are. We plan TV that way, and then we take the TV attribution data. We start optimizing against what we're seeing happen with data-driven linear. So it might say this is where we actually have an opportunity to reach more of these people, but are they taking the outcome we want? Because they're both important, right? If we reach the people we want, but they don't take an outcome, it's less meaningful. So I think TV attribution has really changed the way we've done data-driven linear in the last 18 months.
And with companies like LiveRamp and others, it's a fantastically exciting area of development, it seems to me. Final word then. Next 5 years, you've got your crystal ball, you're peering into it. What are you seeing in 2025 that really excites you? Where should we be starting to place bets now as sell-side companies, as enablers, as platforms, as broadcasters?
I think what's been happening in the last year has been really interesting when it comes to content. If you would have asked me 2 years ago what I thought was going to happen in the space with all the platforms and the players kind of, out there, I would have said, well, it's just, there's a lot of disparate content. There's a lot of disparate sources where you can buy audience and premium TV-like content. I think now you're starting to see the TV giants and the broadcasters put their arms around that content and realizing how valuable it is and going, wait a second, I'm going to pull this back in. I would like better control of it regardless of where it's being viewed, because that, to the end of the day, kind of what Joanna and Jim were talking about, it really solves for some of the TRP erosion in a way that maybe isn't necessarily C3, C7 conversations, and it's really becoming more about what are the different transactions I can have with a behemoth like NBC? Or
this sounds a lot like walled gardens to me.
I think the difference from walled gardens is that they're not owning the complete place of consumption all the time. Right. They're owning the content. Right. And so pairing the content with the place of consumption plus the exposure data is starting to get you to the place where you can have more insight. I think the exciting opportunity is because you might be able to go to an ABC and make a big bet without having to go to 5 other partners. So you, by aggregating your money, you can try to get more for less. You can drive down maybe your linear CPMs while giving them digital dollars, but you're specifying, you know, how you want those digital dollars spent. And I think there's an opportunity there versus going to 6 different players who do the same thing, where you might not have the same advantage in the marketplace to keep your CPMs flat and, you know, getting exposure data, getting other things that you might value.